Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to Anchor Watch. I am your humble host, Bobby Jones, and thank you for tuning in. So, a lot to get to, so let's get right into it. The opening salvo today, we're going to talk about two major things. There have been obviously they're dominating the news, and for good reason. So, we're going to talk about the latest developments in LA. But I'm not trying to give you, real time reporting. I want to talk about the implications of what's happening and how I personally believe we are in a constitutional crisis. And I'll explain why. And then for below the waterline, the things that happen beneath, the parade that is scheduled for Saturday this weekend. Yeah, and I know it's been publicized, but there are other things that attach to this parade that I don't think people are talking about. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, we'll open up the smoke deck for all of your questions and everything that you would like to ask. There are no dumb questions when it comes to our country, our democracy, international relations. Heck, man, it's the guardrails of how our lives are supposed to be and what we're supposed to try to strive for. So there are no dumb questions. Please ask away. So with that, let's get right into it. Anchor point. Right now, you have the National Guard that has descended upon Los Angeles, and you have en route 700 Marines, a battalion of Marines that will be attached to them. Now, let me just say this. What we're seeing is not necessarily unprecedented, but it's very, very rare, extremely rare for us to see the National Guard activated without the authority of the governor and being directly activated by the president of the United States. What I mean by rare is last time that happened, I want to say was the Rodney King riots in L.A. back in the early '90s, and then before that, during the Civil Rights era in 1965, where the governor of Alabama blatantly defied court orders to desegregate the state and various places within it. So very, very unique circumstances. The Rodney King riots were way more expansive and way more intense than what we're seeing. I was in junior high school when that happened. I remember watching that on the news repeatedly. This is different. We're talking about a limited surface area in downtown LA around various federal buildings that are down there. Um, but the reason this should really just scare people a little bit, and by a little bit, I mean a lot, is the implementation of these 700 Marines that have been attached to what's called Task Force 51. So let me explain to you what Task Force 51 is. The United States Department of Defense divides the world up into geographical, what we call combatant commands. You have U.S. Northern Command or NORTHCOM. You have, that's North America, and you have Southcom, which is Southern, South America. You have CENTCOM, which is the Middle East, all these various things. And underneath those combatant commands, you have these various task force that are tasked to do certain things. Task Force 51 is an U.S. Army led task force. That task force is basically to help support homeland activities, whether it's hurricane, disaster relief, homeland security efforts, et cetera, et cetera. It's a joint task force. What does that mean? That means multiple assets from the different branches of service, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard when necessary and pulled in. These various groups form this task force. Now, on the surface, Task Force 51 being activated to support National Guard is interesting, diabolical work, because in the military world, it's the reverse. Active duty forces are what supports the reserve forces. It's what supports the National Guard. They come in and backfill. It's never really the National Guard or the reserves as the lead, and then active duty comes in to amplify and support. That's number one. So that's the first red flag where you're like, that's backwards. But when you when you come to find out the Marines that are being tagged for this just recently, and I mean within the last day and a half, were attached to Task Force 51. That's the big red flag for me from a tactical standpoint. So my background, yes, I was in the Navy, but when I got command, I was part of what's called a Maritime Expeditionary Security Squadron. emphasis on expeditionary and security, meaning we could deploy anywhere around the world and provide security to American assets, both afloat, in the air, and on the ground at a moment's notice. And I was the commanding officer. We deployed to 5 different time zones at the same time. So I have a little bit of experience on that from the United States military side. And for us to be able to do these missions to provide security, you have to go through a training cycle where you are certified. The training cycle can last anywhere from 6 months to up to a year or even longer, depending on the specialization of the mission. Well, I don't know how 700 Marines out of 29 palms are supposed to magically be ready to do that support role of effectively peacekeeping. They're passing it off as security and securing federal buildings. But when you're dealing with situations where there are continuous riots and continuous possibility of upheaval of civil governance, that transitions into peacekeeping, right? So the American active duty force by trade are not peacekeepers. At best, they will secure something, but they are not trained to be peacekeepers. How do I know? Because the world, the United Nations, has a peacekeeping force. The United Nations peacekeeping force is about 60,000 deep. And you want to know how many Americans out of our 2 million active duty and reserve service members are part of that 60,000 peacekeeping force? Less than 30. Less than 30, because our military is not designed to do that. Now, I'm talking to you from the perspective of one of the few Americans, one of those 30 in his career, that was a peacekeeper for the United Nations. This blue beret that you see here is given to the United Nations peacekeeping force. So to be one of, at that time, I want to say 27 peacekeepers all over the world, I had to go through a special set of training separate from the American military way of doing things. Why? Because they specialized in de-escalation, restoration of civilian forces, reconciliation, all of these things that had to happen. So when I did this, I went into Liberia right after the Civil War took place there in Africa, West Africa, where they used child soldiers and having to help put that nation back together. It is a unique skill set. The United States military is designed to basically destroy property, destroy assets, and if need be, even kill for the United States of America. And they're supposed to do it abroad. The rules of engagement that we have when we deploy all over the world take into account the historical, cultural, and tactical situations thereof. I never thought in my lifetime that I would be looking at active duty service members, and especially Marines, that are going to be deployed on U.S. soil. And they're going to have to learn a new, completely what we call rough, rules of use of force. There is no rules of engagement for them. The Pentagon right now is scrambling. You can Google this as I talk about this, trying to figure out what the rules of engagements are going to be for active duty Marines going to Los Angeles. Why? Because they were never designed to do it. And so to provide some legal cover, they're trying to figure this out real time. That is not when you do that. And you sure as hell don't deploy them, give them an order to deploy without them being thoroughly trained on their rules of engagement anywhere in the world, let alone United States citizens. This is a Rubicon that is being crossed, that from a tactical level, and most Americans don't know this and they don't need to know it, but from a tactical level, it's dangerous. You're telling a 19-year-old to go into an American city where the people will know he's American, he knows they're American, many of them, and ask them to be the person to de-escalate a situation where they may have um, protesters that purposely try to antagonize them. They know how to subdue pretty much one way. Okay, could they refuse the order? So I want to take you guys back to when the Trump administration came into office. One of the first things they did was they fired the lead judge advocate generals, the JAGs, the head lawyers of each branch of service: Army, Navy, Air Force. The Marines fall under the Navy. Okay. This is why they did it. And I said it back then. They're going to use them getting fired and putting, puppets in place to allow them to do these laws. Now, Trump is saying that they're doing this under Title 10 authority, which talks about active duty forces, but most importantly, talks about the National Guard and how the president can utilize it. And there's a paragraph that they're highlighting. They're not using the Insurrection Act. They know it's going to get struck down. And I think they know that this is going to be struck down in the courts too. However, people understand the military deploys at a much faster pace than the legal system adjudicates cases. And they know that too. This is a optic operation. They need the optics of looking strong and powerful. And you need to ask yourself why. Here's why. Trump is getting his butt kicked in every sphere of his government. Internationally, the tariffs have been an absolute mess. Countries are laughing at him. He's begging China to come to the table. Domestically, he has lost case after case after case in the judicial branch, going all the way up to the Supreme Court and having 9-0 decisions that they have to follow. He looks weak across the board. He sees the polling numbers, every major category, even the things that he's supposed to be good at. Economy and immigration has fallen. He needs something to reconstitute himself as a strong individual, a strong man, not a strong leader, a strong man. There's a difference. So what do? Let's go pick on a minority group because that's playbook 101 for authoritarianism rule. That's what you do. You find a minority group and you hammer them. And so we went from watching this man talk about we're going to go after the criminals and the rapists and the murderers, blah, blah, to now I'm raiding Home Depot. I'm going to raid construction sites, people who are building America's infrastructure, building American homes, building American businesses. Let's go after them. They have raided graduations of young people. They have they have completely changed what they're saying because they need a different narrative. And if you really think about the timing of all this all kicked off after Elon Musk said that Donald Trump's name is all over the Epstein files. Go back and look at the timeline. What were we talking about this time last week? Now, what are we talking about? This goes back to what I've been telling people repeatedly. You need to stay on task. Look at the major things that are happening. Now, the problem is this action, people are going to get hurt, people are going to get killed. And unfortunately, some 19, 20-year-old Marine may be put in a situation he or she should have never been put in. So, can they refuse the order? Right now, they're going to say it's a legal order right now until the courts probably step in. Now, there are certain orders that they know that the commanding officers, the senior non-commissioned officers, the NCOs know are wrong based on the Geneva Convention. You know, you don't shoot unarmed people, etc. Blah blah blah. There are things that the world said are war crimes based on what happened in the Great War, aka World War One, that we have been following ever since over 100 years ago. The officers take a different oath than the enlisted. They have no clause in their oath saying they must obey the orders of the president. The enlisted do, but the officers don't. There's a reason for that. And I've said this many times. However, the fact that you have the average age of Marines in a battalion is right at what, 22? You know, when you look at all the ages, the fact that we're about to put those young men and women in a situation where they will be in the streets of Los Angeles. Hell, some of them undoubtedly will be from Los Angeles, and they have to turn their muzzles on American citizens should terrify everybody. It's a bell that cannot be unrung. And so from a tactical standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, and even from a political standpoint, this is bad. This is really bad. But from a political standpoint, it's desperate. It's desperate. Pete Hegseth, for example, was the first one to tweet out they're going to send the Marines, blah, blah. Why? Because he has to try to reestablish some type of credibility with his boss, the president. And to be honest with you, the public, he looks weak. They won't let him travel to the Middle East by himself now after what's happened on his last couple of foreign trips. You can Google this. It's been reported by multiple news outlets that they canceled his trips to the Middle East and put him on the plane with the president because they don't trust him to speak on behalf of the United States. And by the way, he's doing that because Marco Rubio, as Secretary of State, has not traveled that much. Why? Because he's got not one, not two, but 4 different jobs in the Trump administration because no one wants the job. Hegseth also has interviewed multiple people to be his chief of staff at the Pentagon. No one wants the job. Nobody wants the job. And that's a prestigious position, one that if you serve well, you don't have to worry about working the rest of your life. No one wants it. No one wants it. And this is all because people who know that there's constitutional violations that are taking place. They know history is going to judge them very harshly. And most importantly, it erodes the very foundation of the norms of American democracy and American governance. That's it. That's it. So, I got serious issues with everything that's happening. The Marines that are being activated to be active duty um, have not been manned, trained, or equipped for the mission. So, when something, God forbid, happens, which I think partly Trump wants to show that he's tough, God help us all, because they're going to blame that Marine and not the chain of command that sent them. And yes, I agree, Kathleen Hickson has no credibility, but he has the ear of the one person that matters. And for a man who obviously has been trying to seek and find validation his entire adult life, one way or the other, either at the bottom of a bottle or on the admiration of a wannabe dictator, it doesn't really matter to him. So let's see, moving on to below the waterline. Um, I hate to stay in this whole military sphere, but the parade that's happening on the 14th. I don't know if you've seen the visuals of the tanks, the armor, all the equipment that's being rolled into Washington D.C., and it literally looks like the biggest propaganda parade that's ever going to happen in American history. Understand something: you can count on both hands how many times the United States has had a major parade for its military. And almost every last one of them were to celebrate victory in a war, starting with the Civil War. There was a parade there. Okay. They had a parade after World War One. They actually had two after World War One, right? They had two, I want to say, after World War Two, right? And then they had one in 91 after Desert Storm. They didn't have anything for Vietnam. They didn't have anything for the war that I, was part of in the global war on terrorism. No acknowledgement, no nothing, this, that, and the other. The one in 91 happened because people wanted to feel good about the military again after the Vietnam experience. But understand, these parades, most of them actually, only half of them were held in DC. Most were held in New York or other places. The president of the United States was not the person that was highlighted. It was the people who were marching in the parade. They were the ones that are highlighted. Now, if you go to the website for this parade and Google it too and verify this, you can buy VIP packages. VIP packages. Some can purchase high premium VIP packages. Well, you'll get access to the president on a parade where troops, United States service members, are marching. They're using troops to pimp out and make money. I wish I was making this up, and I'm pausing because I'm trying not to be angry, because I am angry, and I'm trying to keep my voice and my tone at a reasonable, rational level. But when I saw that, I saw the rumors, I went and verified it. They're pimping America's military for Donald Trump's ego. They're doing it so they can raise money. They're using American servicemen and women who put their lives on the line on a regular basis, the little time that they have off, to grift, because that's what it's all about. It's all about the grift. So I look at this, I look at the damage that's probably going to be done to DC streets, and the taxpayers will have to foot that bill too. And for what? So that the draft dodger in chief can feel good about the fact that he has a military that he believes responds to him and only him. The people in the first term of his administration were adamant against this, and they stopped it. And now, because we have a bunch of loyalists who are not serious about their jobs, they're just there for the title. These are all people who are very affluent. They all have money. All that's left for them is title and to be put on a pedestal, and they're willing to kiss butt to do it. And this is what's happening. They're grifting our military. Let's see. As an Army retiree, this parade bullshit makes me sick to my stomach. You and me both. Me and you both, Major. I can't believe I'm alive to see this. I mean, I will be at a counter protest and stuff like that, but I members of Congress have, stood by and been, unequivocally silent. The party that swears they care about the troops so much, they don't care. They don't care. They just want to stay out of the dear leaders firing line. And at the same time, you got people that have to mobilize, go up there, get their stuff together, move. Let me tell you something. If you've been in the military, you hate parades. I mean, they may look cool to civilians, but it's a pain in the absolute ass to the actual people that have to do it. So, this is all to feed one person's ego. He sits there and says it's about celebrating the army. You know what? If he wanted to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States Army, you know what he would do? He would go to major bases all over the country. He'd make a day of it. He'd take Air Force One and land and go to, Benning and Bragg and all these places and go, I don't know, serve food to the troops, have town halls with the troops, thank them in person. But no, instead he has all of them coming to him so they can worship him. He doesn't give a damn about us. He never has. He never will. He could have been one of us and he chose not to. And he went through his personal Vietnam, as he put it in his book, to dodge STDs while other people were out there serving and dying. That's why I hated McCain so much. So anyway, let me go ahead and open the smoke deck because I'm trying not to be too angry about this. And let's see what questions you have. So, one of the questions that was asked, and I've already heard that, well, I've already addressed it with the illegal order thing. How can any service person support ICE? Okay, Jackie, let me say this. American service members, we are trained relentlessly not to have an opinion, not to just sit there and say, I hate this at all. We don't speak publicly. We're apolitical. That's what's different about us compared to other militaries historically. When the Revolutionary War was over, George Washington rode his horse to Annapolis, which was the then capital of the newly formed United States. And in that state house, which is still there, he turned over his sword and command of the Revolutionary Army. It was unprecedented in world history at that point that a man that had defeated the world military power walked away. He could have been a king, this and that. Nope. Got on his horse, went back to Mount Vernon. From that moment on, the United States and its military and its relation to civilian authority over the military changed the paradigm of how countries do national defense. And so, in order to maintain that, service members don't say anything. We can't say anything. And more importantly, we shouldn't say anything. That's on the civilians. That's on every damn last one of y'all listening that aren't in the military. Y'all are supposed to speak up. We enable and protect your right to do so. But whoever you elect, we are subject to. So I get a little frustrated sometimes when people keep blaming the service member. We don't do anything. We didn't deploy to Afghanistan and Iraq. The American people deployed us. We didn't deploy to Vietnam. The American people who elected the leaders sent us to Vietnam. You see what I'm saying? It's not blaming the tool at the end. It's blaming the people who wield the tool. And that's on every American citizen that has the ability to vote. So service members are going to follow lawful orders, whether they like it or not, because that's the setup. And it's always been the setup. All right, what else do we have? Let's see here. Victoria. Okay, so yeah, that's one of the rumors. Are they assembling a military presence on both coasts where he declares himself king? I do not believe that is the case. What I do believe, though, is that Los Angeles is a test case for further federal intervention around the country. If you've noticed, where have the majority of these ICE raids taken place? They've taken place in blue cities, overwhelmingly blue cities and blue states. When you look at who has, for example, the most agriculture, it's red states. And there have been raids there, but not nearly as prevalent as they've been, say, in Boston or Los Angeles. They are targeting and trying to punish one portion of the population than the other. I don't believe that they're trying to position military forces to take over. I don't think that's the case, but I do believe these raids are a predecessor to, okay, they see someone saying something they don't like, they will declare it a riot and send the active duty military because it's overwhelming. It will crush the resistance and therefore destroy your ability to have the First Amendment implemented wherever you are. When you take the authority of the governor and mayor and other local authorities from declaring a situation, whether it's a riot, a protest, blah, 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 and it goes immediately to the federal, it can be inherently political. right? That's why the National Guard is given to governors. They know their states more, they know their populations more. And you better believe every one of the 50 damn governors knows their population better than Donald Trump, because for Donald Trump to know those populations, that means he'd have to care. And he doesn't. He just wants to maintain power and seem like he's Kim Jong Il 2.0. All right, what do we got? What else? Is there anything anyone to stop this illegal activity? So if it makes you feel better, I know for a fact, because I've been in contact, there are some high end, high caliber lawyers, organizations that are challenging all this legally in the court. You will see these lawsuits be brought up. I know Gavin Newsom has said he's going to do it too. The only way right now that pushback is happening is through the judicial branch. Again, we have three co-equal branches of government, and only one has put up a resistance. Congress, which is Article 1 of the Constitution. It's interesting. They put the importance of what they believe, the founding fathers, and what they believe it takes to have a functional representative democracy that we have. Number one, Article 1, the Congress. Article 2, the executive office. Article 3, the judiciary. And right now, the judiciary, Article 3, is the one putting up the resistance when it should be Article 1. They should have committees. They should have charges. And if they thought necessary, impeachment proceedings. They have done nothing, because the GOP, to be honest with you, has been so sucked into MAGA culture that they have lost all objectivity, and they are fearful if they push back what will happen to their personal and professional lives. So right now it's lawyers, the law firms that have gone against um, Trump when he tried to railroad them. They've seen their businesses increase with big time clients, and the ones that capitulated are losing big time clients. Because if you can't stand up to the White House, how are you going to stand up for the interests of that company when they come after you? It's a very logical explanation. But right now, support legal organizations. That goes from the ACLU to all sorts of anti-defamation. All these groups are seeing this, and they're trying to bring cases. So outside of calling your congressman and guilting them into doing something, that's what's happening. That's the resistance. And now the protest, the No Kings protest that'll happen here across the country, you're talking about millions of people have registered to do it. That's the other thing. Get out and show that you're not appreciative of these actions. Understand what's at stake. And that, Mitchell, you just kind of read my mouth. So the No Kings Day event, I know Rachel Maddow has talked about it recently. I'm Veterans for Responsible Leadership, the group that I lead, vfrl.org. Please go there. We're part of the group that's putting this on. This is nationwide. We're talking about now, it looks like 1,500 protests all over the country. Over almost 2 million people that I've seen have registered. I mean, this is going to be monumental, and it's solely designed to take attention away from that egotistical fest that will be happening in DC. We want to flood every local media market with what we have, what we're seeing locally. So you get to hear it from veterans, from people who have served their country, both in the civilian sphere, in uniform, first responders, everybody understanding that this is not about just this one person. It's about, what is our country supposed to be? What is it supposed to look like? And it's not supposed to have a king. That was the whole damn point of this. We have not been perfect. My God, I know we haven't been perfect. I'm a black kid that was raised in Georgia, for crying out loud. I know that. But damn, we weren't supposed to be doing this. We weren't supposed to be doing this, right? Where you can just grab anybody off the street and say that they are this, that, and the other. They may be an American citizen. They may not be. I don't know. They just don't look right, whatever the hell that means. We're not supposed to be this. And this is all based on one person's opinion of what they want. Let's see. He's going to make people hate the military just like they did after Vietnam. Those serving will never forgive them. Well, I don't think you're too far off. I think there's going to be ripple effects from this Trump administration that will take years for America to unpack, both internationally and domestically. And just the function of the Department of Defense is going to look completely different and going to be scrutinized in ways it hasn't had to deal with since Vietnam, because of the clown show that they put in charge there. And so it's terrible. Let's see, one last one. let's see. Anybody else? I think that's pretty much it for the day. Please go to my Substack. It's been put on the screen multiple times. Subscribe. I appreciate everybody who has. I'm going to try to continue to give you more. And then finally, a couple of notes. 2:30 right here on Lincoln Square, I'll be interviewing the great Montel Williams. And there's a connection, a story that's of connection there that I can't wait to get into. And then later this afternoon / evening, and we'll bring it up here. If you did not get enough of me, and I don't know how that's possible, I hope you got your fill. But if you want some more, I'll be on later with Rick Wilson for a special Lincoln Square broadcast, and you can see there are some big time subject matter experts there discussing what's happening, the parade, the protests. This is a big week. And I think historians are going to look back and say this is a pivot point. So we're going to break it all down with some people who know better than I do. But I'll be able to comment on some of the specific things that deal with the military deployment. But please tune in live, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I hope to see you there. Thank you very much.